Hello, and welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. Sheree Burton here. Hope you're having a great March as we're marching closer to spring and the spring equinox and all the changes that come with that. There's always a feeling of newness that awaits, and definitely this topic today is probably going to be new to some of you. I mean, maybe you've heard of it, but you haven't really completely explored it. For this discussion might be a little new in your book. So just open your mind and your eyes and ears. This was a fascinating and very frank conversation about the future of healing with sacred plants. And I called it Deep Soul Work with Sacred Plants because, we forget that the master chemist, also known as God the Mother and God the Father, put into plants, particularly some stronger than others in intensity levels, for our healing, for our joy, for the measure of their own creation. And so the question I posed in the show notes, if you had discovered something powerful that you knew could save the life of a suffering loved one, but it was kind of unorthodox and out of the box, would you still share it with them? And if any of you have lost a loved one who has suffered, as I have, as Laura has, unequivocally you would say yes, right? We do anything to relieve the pain and facilitate healing, and especially save the life of those we love. And so since the devastating suicide of her son-in-law and her husband, Laura Stoker has been on a focused mission to heal her family, to find her highest path as a soul entrepreneur, and to liberate others along the way. And in her memoir, Joy is My Answer, she candidly shares her journey of living with her husband's mental illness for 22 years and coming into her own power by finding her voice and holding healthy boundaries. And I've been talking a lot about, in the last few episodes, just about, breaking out of things like betrayal trauma, holding space for yourself, being vocal, advocating for yourself. So she's definitely come into her own that way and has a really powerful story on the other side of it. But what's so interesting and relevant to our discussion today is her recent trips to Peru and having had an unforgettable healing experience with the Shipibo tribe shaman and the feminine sacred plant medicine ayahuasca. Some of you may have heard of ayahuasca. This was actually her second time in the Amazon jungle of Peru working with this plant medicine. And this time she took her daughter with her. So we just get real around what are the implications for this and how can this help more people we love? And what's kind of that new frontier in helping people heal in medicine, in the healing professions, in all kinds of modalities. So this is just a really interesting pathway to explore as one option that could potentially really help masses of people. Laura's book is called Joy is My Answer, and you can find it on Amazon. Also, visit Women Seeking Wholeness Facebook group. Continue these kinds of discussions on seeming controversial topics that could potentially help lots of people. And it is time we open these kinds of discussions. Laura, my friend, I am so excited for this discussion. I've literally been looking forward to this. I know you're sitting on a couch or a bed somewhere with your foot in a cast.
Yes.
And your dog just had 9 or 8 or 9 puppies, right?
9.
Yesterday?
Yep.
Yesterday?
Yep.
So this is interesting timing. All of these things showing up in your domain to land you. New life coming in, right?
Yes.
Well, okay. I just love you. And you and I would say within the last 6 months or so, you and I have really bonded over similar things we're transitioning through and processing. And I've just always loved your personality and have admired you from afar when I knew you were going through a personal hell. And I would love to start there because I know you're very open about this in your book. I think for our listeners, can you share with us what led to your awakening?
I would love to. And I have to say, I love you too. I admired you from afar as well. And I'm just very grateful to call you friend. And so thank you. And thank you for having me on. I was raised in a very religious, conservative home. Wonderful. I have wonderful parents and I'm very close with them. Still, I have a lot of siblings. We're very close. My best friends are my siblings and my parents. And I had, in 1994, I met a young man named Wade and very quickly fell in love and just a very, very short engagement, got married. And I didn't realize that I was marrying a man with severe depression. And it was the first year that we were married and we had our first daughter. who was only about 2 months old, that he had shared with me that he wanted to take his life. And I was devastated. I quickly fell into the role of becoming kind of the person that would try to fix everything. And I cried, and, well, what can I do? How can I help? And I tried to become the kind of like a little mini savior to my husband. And then he would, the mood swings would ebb and flow, and he would cycle. And we were married for 22 years, and during that time he had cycles where he would have severe depressive episodes and talk about ending his life. And I would fall into that role again of trying to save everything. And if we could move to a different home, if he could finish his degree, then he would be happy. If we had more money, that he would be happy and not depressed. And I also believe very strongly, because I was taught growing up and in my religion, that the family unit's very, very important. And it is. I do believe it is. But I was taught that, and how I interpret it was that I needed to put my family above all else, even above listening to my own feelings and my own intuition. And that's just how I interpreted that. I'm not saying that's exactly, was doctrine or anything, but I really fell into the belief that I was truly doing the noble thing by putting my family and my marriage, keeping it together, even above my own feelings, my own intuition, my thoughts, my desires, and everything. And you know how patterns repeat themselves, and if you come from a generation of where generations before you had certain patterns of behavior, you were raised a certain way because they were raised a certain way growing up, and things just kind of repeat themselves, and you think, why is this repeating? I don't want this pattern, but yet it's familiar. And actually your brain is actually wired to be comfortable in that pattern. And so when you try to go outside of that pattern, you actually feel it's so foreign that you can't, it's so foreign that you do everything you can to get back into that pattern. And so my oldest daughter, Brianna, was raised seeing her dad. And I won't, go into all of the details of it now, but he had patterns, manic depressive episodes, and it would yell, and he didn't treat me very well. It was never physically abusive, and that's why I felt like I wasn't justified leaving. And I, not that I know of, did he ever cheat on me? But it was definitely emotional abuse. I hate to use the word abuse, but when I look back now,
legitimately, like if the definition of abuse is somebody usurping power over someone with the intent to manipulate.
Right. Yeah. And we went to years of different therapists, and we were always in therapy trying to figure things out. And anyway, so my daughter ended up marrying a young man that was quite similar to her dad, and not really realizing it. And I didn't even recognize it either. We loved this boy, and he about 6 months into their marriage, 6 or 7 months into their marriage, he began to exhibit very similar behaviors to her dad, to my husband. And my daughter came to me distraught. She said, "Mom, I married my dad. What am I going to do?" And so it just was, she was devastated. And anyway, a few months later, they had just a minor argument, and he left, and we couldn't find him. He just was completely gone. And we were looking for him. It was a very, very traumatic time. And this is the beginning of my awakening. And 5 days after he went missing, we had a policeman show up at our door, and I knew. And I said, is it Shay? And he said, yeah. And he said, I've got to talk to your daughter. And I said, tell me right now, is he dead? And he said, yes. He was found in Wyoming and had taken his life. And that was the beginning of hell, the beginning of everything my world being completely turned upside down, inside out, survival, hell. It was very difficult. And, but it was also a time of awakening. And I look back at it now, I look at it differently. I see things a lot differently than I did then. And it was survival, really, truly keeping my daughter here on the earth because she was really struggling. She's diabetic as well and has different health issues. And what happened was that caused my husband to go into a spiral down. The first few months were okay, but about month 3, he began to exhibit different behaviors again, like a depressive episode, big time. And he had attempted to commit suicide. And at that point, I was getting myself to a healthier place, and I recognized this is over my head and I can't save him. And so I had him, I took him to a mental hospital a couple times. And I began at that time to look at things differently. I began to have my eyes opened and realize this is not normal behavior. And still struggling though onto the fact that I did care for this man and we had children together. But these patterns had to stop. And it was August 10th that we had a therapy session. I agreed I would go. And with the intent that he would give me a full disclosure of his past, any things that he had done that he didn't share with me. I had also began going to this women's betrayal trauma group, which really helped me a lot recognize my role that I played, because it was very easy to point fingers and say, it's your fault. If you would change, then things would be better. But I turned and looked at myself and went, what is my role? How am I I'm allowing this in my home. I'm allowing this relationship. I'm putting up with it. I'm not holding those boundaries. And so that was a big, big awakening. What kind of life do I want? Aside from what everybody's telling me I should have, what do I want? So August 10th, I agreed I would go to this therapy session, and it was a 2.5 hour long therapy session. And he told me little bits of what he had done that I kind of knew. He struggled with pornography and some things along those lines. But in the therapy session, I said, you're not being completely straightforward with me. You're not telling me everything. And I know that he wasn't. He was just holding back. And so I continued to hold boundaries. And I said, you can't come home. I need time. And I hadn't even started filing for divorce or separation or anything. I just told him, you can't come home. And the therapist said, well, let's give it some time. Let's see how things go. Well, August 11th, I woke up and I just had this very strange feeling. It was a very quiet, empty feeling. It was almost like something had severed, like emotionally, like a cord almost between my husband and I. But I just had this very feeling of worry and kind of dread. But then I thought, no, I've got to hold boundaries. I'm not going to reach out to him and say, are you okay? And try to save him. I'm just going to keep holding boundaries. And that day, I think back on this and the timing of everything with my entire family was in town. We had just had a big family reunion. And I'm very close with my siblings. And we were actually watching the Olympics. We were watching Michael Phelps swim. So that was in 2016. And, that big comeback he did. Yeah. And we were watching it. I was at my parents' house and I got a phone call. And it was my daughter who was at our home in which is about 20 miles from my parents. And she said, Mom, there's a policeman here that needs to talk to you. And I knew he had taken his life. And I begged him. He said, you need to come here in person. And I begged him. I said, I'm with my entire family right now. Tell me, is he gone? And he said, yes, he passed away. And my world, I can't even explain it. It was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I broke down completely. I mean, it was very, the scene was surreal. It was as if I was observing myself in that moment because it was so deeply painful that I thought, I cannot walk this road. I can't. I do not have the strength.
Disassociated immediately just to deal with the shock. Yeah,
exactly. And then I knew one by one, each of my children needed to know and to tell my kids and to see their faces. And it just was truly the most painful. There's really no words. But
Well,
there were
I'm gonna interject here. I had a very similar setup to when we discovered my sister's suicide. We'd all gathered at my home, and when we initially found out from the police officer, it was my dad that took the call because we'd been searching for her as well. There's a phrase that I heard from a book that I read called No Time to Say Goodbye by Carla Fine. She wrote about her son's suicide. And she said, when you discover and process and try to process the suicide of someone you love, someone close to you, the world explodes. And that's the best definition I have ever heard of what that moment is like.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it. And it is as if your world explodes and now you're on a different planet.
Yeah.
And you're
Nothing
trying to
is the
figure
same.
out.
Nothing ever from that moment is ever the same. Ever.
Yeah, it's completely different. And so it's a matter of finding the new way of living. How do you live? How do you eat? How do you breathe? How do you sleep? How do you function? And it's all the little things. Everything changes completely.
So can I ask something here? Because
yes.
I think for context, so you had gone to a therapy session, to like a couples therapy session essentially, and there was some disclosure on his part. And you had already kind of set boundaries, like, this is what I'm willing to, this is how I want to live. I deserve this. This is what I'm going to do. And he didn't take the boundary talk so well. Or what would you say? I mean, in retrospect, what would you say was sort of his tipping point, if you will? Or was that ever clear?
Yeah, I think what it was he had shared some things with me that he had done that he looked at as that he could never, that things would never be the same with he and I. Like it was, there were some boundaries that were crossed that were shocking to me, that he had lied about years ago. And he knew that I would look at him differently for sure, because he admitted that he had lied about those things. And there were things that were really shocking that he had done. And so I think that he thought that he could not recover from that and that he was ruined. And I think that's when he knew that we were done for sure is when I'm thinking that that's when he went, I can't go on if I'm not going to be with her. Because he did love me. He was not well. He wasn't well for a long time. And I recognize that now because I'm out of that dynamic, and I have been for a long time. And I'm remarried to a wonderful man that does not have mental health issues, and he's treats me like a queen. And I look back and I think, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that for so many years. And I didn't listen to what my intuition was screaming. This isn't right. Get out.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that you were part of a betrayal trauma recovery group of other women. That's where I initially got into yoga. Is I heard there was a yoga teacher who was doing yoga teacher training, who was working with women in betrayal trauma. And I got really close to these women, and my daughter and I actually did the training together. And I learned about gaslighting for the first time, and I learned how women internalize so much. And when there's chronic, and I guess you could say chronic manipulation, or just sometimes it's very subtle, but until you, like you said, now you're with a man who's stable and healthy, and you're happy, and he treats you this way. But when you're in the middle of that, like as you look back on that time, right, when you were just swimming in that, you don't, that's your normal to a degree, like especially because you were with him for 22 years. Did you know that 22 is the master feminine number? I'm just saying, like, that's
wow.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
It's actually a mastery number of two completes, like opposition. The number 2 is all about completion, but it's also the mastery number of the feminine. So I wanted to add that.
That's so interesting too, because I mentioned to you before we started recording that Wade passed away August 11th. And after he passed away, and I didn't, being raised in a religious conservative home and my upbringing, it was all one way. It wasn't like, oh, go look at numerology and look at the chakra points. And,
Yeah.
even though I've been into oils for a number of years, I just was very much like, that's kind of weird new age stuff. That's what I was taught. Not by my parents necessarily, but just like the culture that I've been in. But I began seeing the number 11, 111, and 1111 all over the place.
Mm.
He passed away August 11th, and it's so interesting. I saw it so much that it was driving me crazy. And I asked my friend, what does this mean? And she said, oh my goodness, it's your angel number, and it's an awakening. It's like you can manifest specific things, and it's a number of awakening and spiritual enlightenment.
Mm.
And I look at that now. That's when, even though I felt like I was dying during that time when Wade died, and we had all that tragedy, and I didn't know if I could physically survive it, the journey of healing, I look at it now differently, because that's when I really began to wake up to real, true spirituality and listening to my intuition. I'm so passionate about that now, because I tell my daughters, I have 5 daughters, just listen to your intuition. If you get that initial feeling something isn't right, or somebody gives you a certain feeling, listen to that, because that is powerful. That's your message.
So you started, I mean, I talk about this a lot on the podcast, and I know you're part of my Stand, Speak, Shine school, and we're diving into this area of what we call a descent, where it's kind of a dark night of the soul, where it's a rite of passage or an initiation into your true soul path. So if you have a calling or a sacred contract to show up and help people heal, you're going to have a life experience that renders you an expert in that field, just because you have to live it in order to be an expert. You can't go get a degree in this stuff. You have to live it in your body, and usually in your family system or someone really close to you. So you started to see, I want you to continue the story with losing Wade, because I met Wade. We knew him. We were, you and I both are in the same, we're both in doTERRA. We both are leaders in doTERRA. So we would, go to these events where there were other leaders, and I would see him a lot. He seemed like a super nice guy, or beautiful man. Just really struggling with that darkness, and probably holding, I would say, if he was keeping the secret from you for all those years, just carrying a lot of internal shame. And you mentioned religious programming and black, white, right, wrong. Do you think that contributed to some of his struggle? I mean, would you say that did he ever talk about that, or?
No, not really. I mean, we talked about how we should be living and things we should be doing, and the pursuit of perfection. I really believe that's not healthy. Now I see that very differently. That feeling like we have to earn our worthiness to have certain blessings and things. I don't believe that anymore. I mean, there's always consequences for everything, but I believe that we are perfect through Jesus Christ. And everybody has that opportunity. And it's not about kind of doing it on your own and pulling up your bootstraps and earning your perfection. And so I think that there was just a lot of, there's a lot of shame and things, I believe, that exacerbate depression and sort of beating yourself up about certain things and striving for perfection. I feel like that it can be very detrimental.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many inroads with that, right? And I've been talking about that a lot on this podcast. So as you started this process of awakening, you started to become aware that heaven was teaching you through numbers and patterns and signs, and I call those like the little breadcrumbs on the trail, where you're just like, oh, wow, that's a coincidence. And then you realize, oh, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And so you entered into the dark night. Also, when people enter into the dark night as the soul initiation, really, to their life path, and it's not like the heavens are totally silent, but there can be a time where it's all like a need to know basis. Like it feels like there's not a lot, like what you thought you knew, what was really comfortable for you in that knowing, because it was all handed to you, right? This is what you need to believe. And then you have this really out of the box experience that doesn't fit into the paradigms you were taught. So walk us through that, like, because I know you've written a book now, which I want to talk about. And I know you're going into another realm of helping people heal, which you probably wouldn't have had you not experienced this with your son-in-law and your, Wade losing your first husband. So yeah, walk us through kind of that awakening where you're like, okay, the old stuff is not working for me anymore. The old tools, the old knowing, the comfortable places I was before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was always for me, and this is again how I interpreted this, is that it was about looking to others and then to God for me. It was about looking to others for approval, looking to my leaders to tell me what to do. I would go to my church leaders and say, tell me what to do. I just want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing. Do I get a divorce? What do I do? And instead of looking within myself and connecting directly to God with power, I relied on other people. And so when Wade passed away, I realized the things that didn't matter to me were living in the shoulds, like things should be this way. And if I do this, then this should happen. Everything was just, like you said, my world was just blown up. And it became a complete, like, desperate need to have just direct connection with angels around me, with God. And I would pray in my closet and I would pray out loud and beg, just please surround me, please surround my home and bless us and give me answers and give me things. And I had so many miraculous things happen, but it was different than what I had thought I would have gotten. And it really helped to open my eyes. Different messages I would receive, I call them downloads, that were absolutely from heaven. And I absolutely know that we each have guardian angels around us, whether it's 1 or 2 or 10, I don't know, but I've felt them. I saw different things during that time. And that truly is what carried me through. But I would say, to answer your question, that a big part of my awakening and true spirituality is that I don't look at what other people are saying I should do and say, this is my journey, my path, and everybody has their own unique journey. And we really can't pretend that we have the answers for every single person, because everybody has their own unique journey that they're on. And we need to, I realized that I needed to finally listen to my own intuition of what my journey is and how I feel about certain things. And yeah, you're right. If I didn't have that experience of losing Shay and then Wade, I don't know where I would be. I think I don't know. It was very disruptive to my pattern of belief. Absolutely. There was just so many things that happened.
And I feel like when I lost my sister, so I lost my sister to suicide in 2005. So it'll be actually 15 years this April. And, when it first happened, I never, like, for 1 second, I'm just knowing her, right? Just knowing her soul, knowing how loving she is and how much she struggled. And not for 1 second did it ever skate across my mind that I would be separated from her forever, no matter what she chose,
Right.
And I think that that's really, as I look back, was probably my awakening too, in the sense that everyone's going to make it. Everybody's going to be okay. No one's going to be banned into this outer realm of darkness or separated from their loved ones. Nothing. That just doesn't even, it's so cruel to think that it would be different. But why do we subscribe to this dogma that
Right.
perpetuates that. It's very mentally damaging
It's
to
very
even go there.
damaging. It's very fear-based.
Yes.
Very, very fear-based. And I recognize, I look at things, it's as if the filter has come off and my eyes are completely open, and I can look back at everything that I used to think, and I don't recognize myself from where I used to be. And I see things so different.
Yeah. I have to say, like, because you and I think I've known you for probably almost 10 years. I think you and I have both been in the same business for 10 years, but I'm really gotten to know you lately. You came to my retreat and now you're in my Stand, Speak, Shine school. But I've seen you rise in your power. It's a very beautiful thing that there's a presence you hold that's quite different. It's like you've become this lighthouse, and you've always had a strong presence, but this is different. There's a depth to you now and a light to you that wasn't there before. So I just wanted to honor you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're welcome. So, okay, I want to dive in now to where you are now. So like that happened in 2016, right? So 4 years ago. What, because I know there's some things recently that you've been going on these journeys to South America, and you've been having these awakenings on a deeper level. You're married to a great guy. It's like your life has stabilized, and now you're really on your path. Like you're really teaching, because you and I have been teaching about the gifts of the earth and plants through essential oils and holistic tools and things like that forever. But now you and I both have this other interesting parallel where we're like, plants. Why don't you explain kind of your journeying there through that modality and that way of addressing the, true healing?
I would love to. And I'm very passionate about this now. In fact, I think I'm going to write another little book about my second journey to Peru. So what happened was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, Matt, my husband, was on Facebook, and he noticed his friend had gone through some big life changes, and he reached out to him and said, "What is going on with you?" And he said, "Wow, I've been going to Peru, and have you heard of ayahuasca?" And so in the course of the next few months, he began to teach us about ayahuasca, and it's plant medicine, and it's been used for hundreds of years, and it's really such a beautiful thing. And so, and it helps people to have healing experiences. And so, in this course of learning about it, of course, I don't drink alcohol. I've never smoked a thing in my life. I've never done like a recreational drug. And so I'm like, whoa, what is this? This is kind of foreign. But through educating lots of different books and things, I learned that the plant medicine ayahuasca helps people, clinically shown to help people with PTSD, with depression, anxiety, trauma, addictions. It actually helps to create new neural pathways in the brain and can rewire the brain permanently. I was very curious about this, and I had heard too that that people have sometimes receive the gift of being able to communicate with those people that have passed on. And I so desperately wanted to have just this kind of final closure with Wade, and I wanted to just have some closure. And I was also struggling the first year really pretty bad with PTSD. Every time the phone would ring, my legs would shake. I had a physiological reaction. I would answer my phone and say, with my kids, I'd say, "Is everything okay?" I wouldn't say, "Hello, how are you doing today?" It's like, "Is everything okay?" I just need to know everybody's okay. And so I knew that wasn't normal, and it was from trauma. And so I was curious, and I thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's take this trip to Peru. And so Matt and I went to Peru, March of 2018. And I wrote about, actually towards the back of my book, I shared my experiences with the plant medicine ayahuasca. It was made such a profound impact. It truly did change me. It truly did. I had the opportunity to communicate telepathically with Wade and during a ceremony. And it was so one of the most difficult things I've ever done, one of the most painful, but also one of the most life transforming experiences is taking this plant medicine, ayahuasca. The difference was I went from saying that I was not a victim of suicide because I would say I wasn't the victim because I recognized that he did this. This wasn't what I did. But deep down inside, I felt like what could I have done different? Could I have done something different? And not only that, but I am the victim of someone that committed suicide. My husband of 22 years took his life. Yes, I am the victim. I have every right to say I am the victim of this. But yet when I went through this ayahuasca ceremony, I came out of it on the other side and I had gratitude. And not for 1 second have I felt into my very core being, have I felt that I'm the victim at all to this type of trauma. I look back at my life and all the life experiences I had, and it's as if I have this beautiful buffer. I don't know how to explain it, but it's as if my mind and my heart cannot even go to the place of I'm the victim, and it only feels gratitude. I only feel gratitude. And it permanently did. There's no amount of therapy that could have done that. And ever, like there's people that experience trauma and they go a lifetime of therapy and they still struggle with different things. And I have truly felt so much gratitude. And that happened during the ceremony when I was able to communicate with Wade telepathically. And
that's amazing. So I have heard that ayahuasca is, and again, like God is the master chemist, right? He's the one that knows exactly, like, is there any coincidence that plants have psychoactive ability? I mean, it's for some plants, yes. I mean, I've been learning, I actually just listened to a podcast episode about MAPS. And I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's this man who's been working for 40 years to bring psychoactive plants into mainstream psychiatry. And he has written and done, and they're actually doing these clinical trials on ecstasy, LSD, and shrooms, basically psilocybin, where microdosing, and also during training psychiatrists to use these plants in a very lower dose to release trauma. And they're finding, and they're starting to train them and starting to do clinical trials, but they're keeping the pharmaceutical companies out of it. So they're having private funding coming in to fund these, because these outside investors understand that once these pharmaceutical companies, start to control what's actually sacred to the earth, it changes the capacity of the healing, the potential for the healing. So as I'm listening to you, and you are literally the 12th person in my life who's talked to me about ayahuasca, and you and I have had more in-depth conversations about it. But for some of our listeners who maybe had that programming of, excuse me, that, like the devil's weed with marijuana, and like there can't possibly be anything good about, these plants that, put people in hallucinogenic states and what have you. But in the right environment, with the right intention, and with the right spiritual and protective setup, if you will, and for and environment is everything, and the way that it's put together is everything, and the person administering it is everything. But if all of those indicators are in place, people can experience a profound shift, as you're saying, and in my research with new neural pathways, healing. So I just want to say, for the listeners who aren't familiar, who might get triggered by this, because it sounds like we're talking about going to do drugs.
Oh my gosh, no.
It's a whole other level of, and I want you to come back to your experiences and prove, but I'm also going to put it out there that by the time this podcast episode airs, which is, March 25th, in a couple of weeks from that day, I will be going to Costa Rica to do a week of ayahuasca sacred plant ceremonies with at a medical facility with a doctor and a couple of, more than one actually experienced shamans who have all of those indicators in place that I addressed, who take about 100 people a week through these experiences. So, and I want to talk about shaman too, because I know when you journeyed to Peru, you worked with a shaman. And I think people have heard that word, but like you said, it completely, and I've talked about this, like it completely triggers people in more conservative religious communities. Like, what in the heck are you talking
about? Have you lost your mind?
What's going on with you? You're going out into the jungle with a shaman to do plant medicine, right? So completely just saying it that way sounds super sketchy. So let's explain to our listeners sort of what you did in Peru and your experience with shamanic work.
So yeah, absolutely. And I get it because I thought that first too. And so it was researching it and watching those videos. There's so many amazing videos on YouTube that can explain really in detail exactly how it works and what it does. But I will tell you that if you want to improve your life, if you want to know why you have blocks, if you want to know what's holding your back, if you want to go through and process trauma, there is nothing like ayahuasca. Nothing like it. If you can imagine, like I was sharing with my daughter this morning, I had my hands together, like forming a ball. And if you have your fingertips together and you're forming a ball with your hands, and this is your perspective, this is your paradigm within this sphere of space between your hands. What ayahuasca does in the ceremony is it completely opens it up. So take your hands, you open them up, and exposes you to why you do certain things, how you think about certain things, why it'll take you back to memories that you did not even know you had, back to your childhood, and you're watching it from a third person. And then all of a sudden everything clicks and you go, that's why I do that. Oh my gosh. And then it allows your brain to reprogram. And then you face your fears, you look at everything and then it puts it back together in a different way that will forever change you. So that's kind of just in like a super layperson's term, like how I would explain the benefit of ayahuasca. I will tell you that you absolutely need to work with an experienced, trusted shaman, because it is truly like, imagine this, you go and you have to have a surgery done, and you go to just any corner place, like, oh yeah, do my leg surgery, whatever, give me heart surgery. And you go there and you don't know if you have, you don't know if the facility's clean. You don't know how the doctor's experience is. You're exposing yourself. You're at this hospital that could be very subpar. And versus if you go somewhere, you trust the people, you trust the environment, you're in good hands, because it's serious work. It is absolutely work. Doing these ayahuasca ceremonies is so far from any kind of recreational experience. In fact, it will take you down a road if you have that tendency to have addiction and seek after those highs or whatever. It'll take that desire right out of you. And it is absolutely purging. It is absolutely eye-opening in every way, and so far from any type of high at all. I mean,
and it's not addictive.
Oh no,
the psychoactive sacred plants don't have that addictive nature to them. It's only the really refined and synthesized drugs that do. So the plants in their whole form, there's no.
And so you will feel, when you go to Costa Rica, you are going to feel like you are in a hospital for your soul. That is hard work. You have a special diet that you follow before you go. And I would say, if you can, as long as possible before you go. And then while you're there, you have a very special, strict diet that you follow. And the plant medicine, you have the ceremony. So basically, the ceremonies last between 4 to 6 hours, and it's a journey of massive downloads. massive downloads to the point where it's like, whoa, slow down. How do I remember all this? And life-changing experiences.
Mm.
But it is a hospital. You are going to the next day after the ceremony. They do what's called an integration. And it's very, very important that you keep a journal about things that happen to you in the ceremony. And in the integration, you discuss, usually as a group, this is what a professional group would do. You discuss what happened to you in the ceremony, and then you talk about integrating it into your life. And those journal entries that you do during that course of time, that is what you will integrate into your life. And so different messages, different things from exactly what you need. It's going to be different for everybody, but it's going to be exactly what you need.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I never in a million years thought I would ever do anything like this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why am I so resistant? Right. And so I first heard about 2 years ago, people were talking about it in the therapeutic community because I'm really niched into learning about breaking generational patterns and emotional healing. And of course, just that's my whole career is cracking the code on depression and anxiety and breaking family patterns. And so it would show up. And this is how God and the divine work in all of our lives. When we ask for something, it doesn't always come in the box we think it should. Like that's been our whole discussion to this point, right? Like,
absolutely.
When it just never does. And it's never convenient either. By the way, when the spirit directs something, it's never convenient. So literally, I cannot tell you, Laura, how many people, and you're one of them, have told me about this. People that are super like together and normal and spiritual and faithful and stable and like, it just keeps coming up. And somebody said something to me while Jeff and I were on a luxury couples retreat in Costa Rica earlier in February, and it had nothing to do with plant ceremonies or anything, but they were talking about it. Some of the facilitators, and I was like, "Whoa!" People just keep talking about it. And this lady said to me, she looked right at me, and she said, "Ayahuasca will call you." Call you. And I got chills through my whole entire body. I was like, whoa. And then I got back from that trip to Costa Rica and just started to integrate into my life and do business stuff and whatever, trying to be really prayerful, still releasing lots of trauma because that's just where I'm at in my life. And then it happened again. I went to a practitioner and she's just this really beautiful body worker, energy worker person. And she said, I just got back. And she told me that she had just gotten back from Costa Rica doing a week at this retreat where they do ayahuasca. And I was like, what? You're like the 50,000th person that's told me about this. And we spent our whole session just talking about it. And I had this knowing that I needed to go do that. I just knew that I needed to do that. So I went and set it up and bought my plane ticket literally that day. That's how like my soul was in the driver's seat, just like, you will do this, you will go. So it'll be really interesting to experience that and to come back and share it with the listeners, because like you, I feel like I'm sort of going to be pioneering sort of a new way of accessing true healing, not Band-Aid approach, but bringing people, I don't care if it's out, like you and I are at this point in our lives, we're like, we do not care what people think. If this is going to heal people, if this is going to break those dysfunctional family patterns, would you not do anything to, so you went and let's explain shaman to people, because I know in people's minds, they're thinking of like somebody with like a traditional headdress, burning incense everywhere. Like it brings up connotations for people that might be a little triggering or unclear. So how would you define a shaman? And what's your kind of reference with that?
Yeah. So I have a very, very special place in my heart now, having returned just recently a second time to Peru for the work that the shamans do. So we worked with the Shipibo tribe, and in Peru, there's only about 30,000 people left in the Shipibo tribe, if I think I've got that number right. But I would describe shaman, and I'm definitely not, an expert. I'm learning as I go. but someone that is very, very in tune with plants, with plant medicine, that's dedicated their life to serving God through healing people with what God has placed on this earth for our healing, and that is plant medicine. And they're wonderful people. Now, just like everything, you can be part of a group and there's going to be people that don't have good intentions. And so you have to be again, listen to your own intuition, go with a group that is reputable, and you can, definitely, because like I said, you are in a hospital, and if you're not getting proper care and the right amounts and everything, it's work, it's serious work, and you want to make sure that everything is above board. But the Shipibo tribe, we spent 2 weeks in Peru just a couple of weeks ago. We got back. My husband, Matt, myself, and actually I brought my daughter, Caitlin, with this time. And she's 22 and had miraculous experiences with physical healing, emotional healing. Is one of those things too, just as a side note, Caitlin said to me, like maybe, 2 weeks before we were supposed to fly out, she said, "Mom, I need to go. I have a very strong feeling I need to be there with you." And it just came to her while she was meditating. And I said, "Okay, we're going to figure this out. Let's get a ticket for you. Let's go." And she had incredible experiences. But it does call you, as a side note. So that is very interesting. The other thing is, so the shaman people are very, very in tune with the plants. In fact, for a time, they call it the dieta, where they diet specifically on 1 or 2 plants so that they can understand the spirit of the plant. They communicate with the plant. It's really an incredible thing, an incredible discipline. And what happens in the ceremonies, and of course you can go to do some research and watch and learn about the ayahuasca ceremony. But just to tell you, just in short, is that you drink a small little cup, and I have to say, it's the most disgusting tasting, foul, grossest thing on the planet I've ever tasted. It's horrible. So just so you know, bring a little peppermint. I had a little peppermint with me, and I would just take a little bit on my finger, and then I'd rub it on my tongue after, and it really helped. Just this little side note that'll help you when you go. Okay. But yeah, you sit, you're in a maloka, which is like this is traditional ceremony. So you're in a maloka. Everybody has like yoga mats and kind of a circle. And we had about 10 people in our group, and you you go up one at a time and drink. It's about a quarter cup of the ayahuasca brew, which is a combination of the ayahuasca plant and the chacruna plant. And the ayahuasca plant is a plant for purging, and the chacruna plant is for visions. And so it's very uncomfortable. I will say this. It's not, well, it doesn't always have to be. I had some blissful ceremonies that were absolutely, I need to write about them. In fact, I'm going to. I'm committing here on your podcast. I'm going to write about my experience the second time in Peru, because I'm telling you, as this little side note too, that the chakra points you hear about, people talk about your crown chakra, your third eye, your heart, all of those chakra points, they are absolutely real, because I could feel them all opening up. I had incredible physical sensations during these ceremonies where it was receiving massive spiritual downloads as my chakra points were opening, and I could feel them. It was so otherworldly and so incredibly healing. The messages that I received in the ceremonies were exactly what I needed based on my intention that I went into. Beautiful that I've implemented. Can I give you one example? One little example?
Sure.
If we have time for that. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm rolling with this. I'm
okay.
Totally fascinated. Okay. And I do want to come back. Before you do that, I want to tell people that there's the old shamanism is considered the occult or some malevolent thing, right? So don't going into divination and all this stuff. So that's not what we're talking about. If you just Wikipedia it would be weird. But shamans are actually healers, modern day healers who are fearless against the forces that try to erode our humanity and our spirituality. And so they're kind of going back to indigenous ways versus modern medicine ways to access the soul. So I just want to say shamanism, if that's a trigger word for people, all it really means is a modern day healer who, unlike maybe like a medical doctor or something, they actually are, like you mentioned, a hospital for the soul, right? So a modern day shaman is someone who does soul work with people. And a lot of them have really natural spiritual gifts, or there's many ways to be a shaman, but some of them can actually go across dimensions or see things that the average person may not be able to see. So I just wanted to insert that there in case we lose people are like, what?
Yeah. Well, and they can be like the shaman that we worked with, that was there with us the whole time. She stayed on site. Her name's Juanita, and she knew from the time she was a little girl. And so she's been training from the time she was a little girl to be a shaman. And not everybody, you don't just go, I'm going to be a shaman. And then, yes, you can study, you can learn, and you can become a healer and all of these things. But it's almost like you're chosen to be a shaman with your spiritual gifts. And so it really is very unique, and it's a tremendous blessing. And she's a woman that is full of light and love. And her desire when we were there was to help us heal. And it was truly beautiful. And she actually works with her son, who's training to be a shaman as well. And then her grandson, who was he's about 10, cute little Peruvian little guy. They call him Junior, but he's also training to be a shaman as well. And so he was there with us in the ceremonies, drinking the plant medicine, having his experiences and his healing. And I do want to say too that, to let you know too, that it isn't just, it's interesting, you'll receive what you need. So there are people that do these ceremonies, see physical healing as well. Physical. Yeah. I've talked to a friend of mine that before she went, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, she said that she was going to have knee surgery. Her knee was really messed up. And in the ceremony, she didn't have any visions at all, but she felt just tingling all throughout her body. And she got up from the ceremony and her knee was completely repaired. It was healed. And so there are miraculous things that happen.
Yeah. So there was a lady in our group who had a chronic lower back condition. I mean, I said like our luxury couples retreat in Costa Rica, who had this chronic lower back condition for years and years and years and years. And it released that week and it's completely healed. And they told me when I called and talked to the person, that point of contact there in Costa Rica, that, you should come with the intention to expect a miracle. And they said we have like a 90% something success rate of like, if people are really intentional about what they want to heal. You're not allowed to be on any antidepressants or a lot of medications really at all leading up to that. Like you said, there has to be a totally clean diet, plant-based mostly leading up to going. So it's very, but anyway, they said like, and a lot of people have said like, even like their depression is just not there anymore. They like, if they didn't have a will to live, or they were like a jerk or an a-hole or whatever, like they were just not that way anymore. And so and I want you to continue to talk about what you're talking about, but I want to also say here that not everyone can drop thousands of dollars and go to South America or Central America, and go through something like this. I feel really called to do that. And I feel like, that's the next step for me. But I also feel like you, that the reason I'm literally leaving my family to go do this and make the investment and do this literal jungle work is to come back and bring people into a space where they can experience it without having to leave where they're going. And I just already kind of have a knowing I might be, because I am here to crack the code on depression. I have known for many times that I would be building healing centers throughout the world. Just was on the phone yesterday with somebody who's wants to bring me into a healing facility he's putting together in Florida. So like, I can see it lining up already. And like you, but you're further along in the journey of knowing what you're doing with it. But I just want to say like that it's not just for my own, work. like anytime we do soul work, it's really so we can be shamanists of sorts to other people who might be experiencing what we just went through or what we've gone through, to bring the tools to the greater population. So that's very much part of your trajectory.
Oh, yeah. And I can feel it. And so I do look back at this spiritual awakening as a completely different path than I was on before. I don't even recognize myself. The world needs this desperately. The world needs to wake up to the fact that plant medicine has been around for thousands of years, since the beginning of time. And it's just in our Western culture that everybody is in very fear-based and thinking, oh my gosh, it's a recreational high. You're going off to do drugs. Oh my goodness. People go experience ayahuasca ceremonies and they come back clean and not wanting to touch those things, not wanting to touch alcohol and marijuana and drugs and things like that. It is incredibly.
It should be
healing.
noted also that it's legal, especially, there's actually doctors who administer it, at least the place where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to, it's interesting when you go down a path that is part of your mission, a lot of doors open up. And we've had some, even just yesterday, we've had some, I say we, my husband, Matt and I, some amazing doors are opening up with helping to bring plant medicine to the world and awareness to the world. And so there are opportunities for microdosing ayahuasca as well. And so we're just as a little to let you all know that is something that we're kind of researching right now too.
That's so cool.
And so and I don't know, I could talk about this for 6 hours, just so you know.
I think we need to do another, like when I get back from Costa Rica, like at the end of April, I think we need to do a follow-up because this is going to spark, some people are going to listen to this and go like, it feels like it's calling them too.
Yes.
And
yes.
I have to also say that when I talked to a woman who went through this, what I'm about to do in April, she said that while that there were certain people who did these series of ceremonies, and they all were from different parts of the world, and they came together and they didn't know each other, but they were told during their journeys, their plant journeys, that they needed to stay there and do the work. And so literally 5 of them independently in their own private journeys were told the same thing. And so they all connected and now want to bring this out to the greater population as well. And so they dropped everything to do the work. In fact, there's a man, I think he's from here in Utah, who is a medical doctor who now lives in Costa Rica to be there full time because he was told during his journey that that's part of his path. So interesting. And my friend also went to say, like, when she has kids and they turn 18, they're doing it. They're going to go do this, like 100%. And I know that you went with one of your daughters.
Yeah.
On your last one.
Yeah. And I plan to go back this year, I think in the fall, and I'm going to take one of my other daughters. She'll be 17. But yeah, it is safe in the right place. It is safe for people under 18. But there are facilities, obviously, that say you need to be 18. But I wanted to just say, when you mentioned that they were told to stay and they were told certain things, I think if I were learning about this for the first time, I would think, well, like, who told them? Like, what is this?
How does that work?
It's so, it's very interesting because when you're on the plant medicine in the ceremony, people refer to the ayahuasca as Mother Ayahuasca. And it is as if you have this guide with you, and it's a female, this guide that guides you through. And in my ceremonies, there were such massive amounts of downloads coming at me. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Not out loud, but in my mind, I was like, okay, you have to slow down. I have to remember all this. It's like download after download after download, answers to your questions. Like one of my intentions in one of my ceremonies was, I want to run again. I want to run again. And I've had plantar fasciitis in one of my feet, and actually just had surgery like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. But so my intention was, I want to run again. And that's great, like heal my foot. Well, instead, what I was shown was it was like as if I asked for the size of a pencil eraser, and I was shown the whole world. And the way that I could run again. I was shown my diet. I was shown how I needed to change things in my diet. I was shown how I need to stop using plastics. I mean, all of these amazing things that are like, whoa, they're so life-changing that now I'm a vegetarian. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to honor my body. And what I put in my body is it needs to be alive. It needs to be healthy, pure, good food. And so I received so many messages. But it's Mother Ayahuasca. It's the spirit of the plant that
very
will
feminine
communicate with you.
kind of plants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that too.
Yeah. And I did want to share, if we have a couple more minutes.
Sure. Yes.
I wanted to share something that to give you an idea of the type of messages that, for me personally, that I received, but something that you'll hear with a lot of people that experience ayahuasca. So one of my intention was for one of my ceremonies was I want to help me understand what my blocks are that are holding me back, because there's certain areas of my life that I really want to progress, and I feel like I'm just kind of stuck. And so show me my blocks, help me understand how to release them, and help me understand what to fill that void with. Because when you release something, there's a void. And if you don't fill it, you'll have something else come back that might be worse. And so, I was taken on this journey, and this is like a 4 to 6 hour journey. This is a really exhausting journey. It's like you're entering, when you start the ceremony, when you drink the medicine, it takes 20 to 30 minutes before the medicine begins to work in your body. And my heart will race because I'm nervous, because it's as if I'm coming up to this giant door, and I'm going to open the door and take a step into this path that I don't know what I'm going to experience. I don't know what I'm going to be shown. And it takes a brave soul to do it over and over. And you'll understand to do this over and over and again. You have to be very brave and muster up all your courage, because it's a journey. It's very exhausting. And so I was taken on this journey of being shown all these different scenarios in my life. And the shaman Juanita tells us at the beginning, she says, you need to keep your focus on your intention, and be very silent. We're not loud. And sometimes you'll see ceremonies where people are like screaming and crying and laughing. She asks us all, and I really like this, to be in your own space, be silent and quiet, so that it honors everybody's space. So it's very silent, and everybody's on these journeys. And so as I'm going through, Mother Ayahuasca is showing me all these scenarios. And I'm like, why are you showing me this? I'm supposed to be focused on my intention and what my blocks are. And then I kept being shown all these scenarios. And then the scenario would resolve itself into the final message of that one scenario. And it would be one of my kids dying. And I'm like, I don't want to think about this. This is horrible. This is a nightmare. And then I would start to laugh inside. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of my greatest fears. This is a fear. And then she'd say, yes, now let's go on another journey. And she'd take me on another journey. And I would again think, I got to focus. Why? My mind's all over the place. I'm thinking of all these things. And then it would resolve itself again into another fear. And I'm like, oh, I get it. My blocks are because of all these fears that I have. And then I had this, and this sounds very strange. Okay. I recognize that, because I recognize what I thought when I learned about ayahuasca for the first time. But I saw a female face, and I saw her face, and she had her finger, and she came up and she went, shh, like this, like to be quiet. And then she put her finger away from her face and did like a motion, like in front, like going across, like from left to right. And then she would tell me, observe. And then every scenario she showed me, she'd go, shh, and then observe. And she said, observe your fears. Don't internalize them. Just observe. Observe them as they come. Observe the fears. And I was like, oh my goodness, I get it. And this is a journey that was like, quite a few hours. And then she said, now I'm going to show you love, true love. And then I had this red, warm color expanding in my entire body, and I could see it. I mean, my eyes were closed, but I could see this warm red. And then I was immediately shown somebody that I had felt very justified in being angry at.
Mm.
Someone that was close to me. And I said, I do love this person. I love this person. It was almost like, see this person? I'm going to show you love. And I said, I love this person. She said, no, show her. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Love in action. And I went, oh my gosh, how do I do that? And it came to the message of, I need to have like a conversation with this person. And it was so healing and so positive that I never would have thought that my blocks that I had were because of certain fears that I was internalizing that was holding me back, and that the feeling of what I need to fill my soul with is love for even people that have offended me, that I need to forgive them and show them love. And I was told that this person was someone that I was assigned to help break generational patterns with women.
Wow.
And that was so huge for me. That was so life-changing, that I came back and I integrated that, and I reached out to the person, and I did what I was told I needed to do. And I feel so light, and I feel so happy that I could just cry. And so those are the kind of things that you receive. That, I mean, I don't want to say everybody gets that, but that's the kind of stuff that happens.
It's tailored to where you're at. All of the people that I talked to, and I did talk to a man who did this and had a series of journeys, and he said, it's always mother. It's always about, this is what we're missing in the world. It's this beautiful, feminine, teaching, powerful, go within kind of guide that needs to be more present in men and women. But this is what, and I've been teaching this for a while, that we literally have feminine energy streaming into the planet right now. And so if there's another tool to facilitate that, through what God has already put on the earth, I would say God the Mother and God the Father, that's in my reference, in these plants, then let's get this work done, because it's almost like they're activators, right? These plants.
Yeah.
And they're healing the unprocessed trauma that we've been carrying for millennia. So I love that you had that experience. And my friends shared a very sacred experience with her, being taught by a tree, next to a tree that symbolized the tree of life or the mother, and had a very beautiful teaching. And so I'm coming into this going, okay, there's a reason that she's calling me. And, people just keep showing up as second, third, fourth, fifth, at this point, 12 witnesses. And I know it's the next step for me also, and not just about me, about, bringing healing to my family lines, as well as to the greater populations of women and men that I feel like I'm being, shown will also possibly benefit or experience healing. So so fascinating. I mean, we could just keep talking about this. And I was like, hey, let's shoot for a half hour, 40 minutes. Here we are, like almost an hour later. And it's great. I love it. I love that we were able to just dive in and get to the heart. Is there anything else that because I'm going to direct people to your offering, like with your book, and you've got all your story in there, and your book's actually about embracing joy, which I love. Yeah. But how, is there anything that you would add that you feel like would be a great way to kind of close this out?
Well, one of the things I was told to as well in the ceremonies just a couple of weeks ago is that I need to bring plant medicine to the world in awareness, and pulling from. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going public with it. 2 years ago, I kept it really under wraps just for fear of judgment from people that in my community that might think I've lost my mind and I'm going off to get high somewhere in the jungle, which is, if they did it, they would go, oh my gosh, how did you go back again? You're so brave. But that is
just ignorance, right? People it's just, they just don't know.
Yeah.
They haven't been shown or taught, just like we weren't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, being true to who you are, listening to your voice and finding power in your voice, and not living for, in a way that other people are telling you you should live. Um, that is holding healthy boundaries, because the fact is, if you don't hold healthy boundaries, it doesn't help the people that you're with. It enables the people that you're with to continue bad behavior. And so that would be, if I could go back in time to myself 5, 10, 20 years ago, it would have been, give myself that message. If I would have had the book that I wrote, Joy is My Answer, if I would have had that years ago in my marriage, it would have helped me, because I believe it is exactly, and it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about empowering women, because you are absolutely right that there is an awakening happening right now around the world. And it's really coming strong to women, because we have been in a very, very patriarchal society for a long time.
Deferring all of our inner authority, outsourcing,
yes.
like we started talking about at the beginning, where you were starting to feel like, why can I not just connect in and go right to the source? Why do I need another human to tell me my truth?
Yeah, exactly. And so really listening to that, and I'm not, I love men. I mean, I love my manly man. He's 6'4". He's, I'm like, yes, hold the door open for me, open my car doors. I mean, I love being feminine with my man. I love that. That's different than what I'm talking about is we as women need to claim our power again and listen to our inner voice, because I do believe that we are all healers, and that each of us can make a difference in this world. And there, I could talk about this for hours, but there's so many aspects of that, like empowering yourself financially so that you can have choices, because money's just a tool. And but understanding too, and having faith that if you are in a bad situation, that your intuition is screaming, get out, that you are not alone. And that when you make that choice to hold a boundary and honor yourself, that things will open for you. Doors will open for you. We're not alone. We have, on the other side of the veil, I've had experiences, very strong, real experiences, where I've seen and I've heard things, heavenly help. And I know that everybody has that. I'm not an exception. Everybody has that. We have access to that. And we have access directly to God and to our Heavenly Mother as well. We just need to ask. And to take that step is scary, but you actually help the person that may be putting you in a bad situation that you're enabling. You actually help the person more by holding boundaries and saying, enough is enough. I'm done. Get help and find your joy, find your path, your joy. And everybody's different. Don't live how other people are saying you should live. This is your path. That I believe is, and the other thing too, that I feel very strongly about, just because of how I was raised in this religion that I was raised in, which I had a great upbringing and everything, but I always thought for some reason I wasn't worthy enough. I wasn't worthy enough to have the Spirit with me all the time. And I had experiences where I talked to people that, and I won't go into all the details, but I talked to people that weren't living up to all these standards of this belief, system.
Right.
And they would receive spiritual answers and promptings. And I thought that was kind of the turn of my awakening, like about 5 years ago. Where I went, wait,
it's like,
why are you getting this?
Religious people don't have a handle. Like,
no,
they don't. They're not monopolizing truth and spiritual answers and downloads and gifts. No way.
Exactly. So I very much believe that the moment you ask, no matter where you are in your life, that the Spirit is there to help you. Angels are there, everybody's there. And so this notion of, I have to do all these things before I can be worthy to even ask, or is just ridiculous. So
the whole striving for worthiness thing, it's just got to go.
Yeah.
It's just got to go. Because if people really did connect in, we're all divine. That's what's in there. And Yes, we do have so much heavenly support. I've gone through so many transitions lately of just trying to get clear on what my truth is. And it's so liberating, actually, but it is kind of scary. And I think the more of us who band together and share that, the true altruistic intention and goal, if you are a truth seeker, is to get to the heart of it, is to that wouldn't take you off path, so to speak. It wouldn't take you out of alignment. It's bringing you to it, but it has to look messy. It's like a pendulum has to shift. You have to do deep shamanic healing of some way, purging your soul. You have to go through the dark night of the soul. Maybe you have to experience tragedies. I say you have to, but that, it's going to look different for everyone. Levels of intensity will be different, but for you, it would be a level of intensity, and it's very brave work to go in and say, yep, I'm saying yes to this. I want the truth. I want to know. I want to find who I am.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who wants to be asleep? Really? Who wants to be asleep?
Some people do.
I guess that's true.
There's a payoff.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a comfortable way of living. So many people.
Yeah. Seeking, though, if there's truth, if you seek, it's a good thing. You're going to find answers. And instead of just living in fear and staying closed, seek things out, research. If ayahuasca is fascinating to you, research it. And even I understand. When we got there 2 years ago, I was like, whoa, this is like completely a different culture. It's a totally different world. I mean, everything was completely different. But my experience going back a second time was I was much more open because it's just been a journey of healing, returning back because we fly into Iquitos, Peru, and then we have to take a van for like 2 hours, and then we have to go on the Amazon River for a good hour and a half. And once we got on that boat into the river and we were heading back deep into the jungle to the lodge, I just got so emotional because I thought 2 years ago I was here, and this was a pivotal part of my healing path and my healing journey. It was very emotional. It was and now I do know part of my mission, because I was told this too in the ceremonies, is to bring plant medicine to the world, to bring awareness to people. Everyone needs to, if they choose to, wake up and see this for what it is. And if they're open to it, if they're ready, it's hard work. It's not easy. It's a brave soul that does it. So I'm really excited to hear about how your journey goes in Costa Rica.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm trying to not have an agenda, but I do also believe that if you are intentional and you're open to receiving, that you can experience true and lasting change and miracles, literally, if that's your intention. And that just I'm coming out of a 7-year cycle of the dark night of the soul. It's not like 7 years of complete darkness and no joy or whatever, but journeying through my own soul alchemy. Lots of transitions, lots of my highest life goal is to just get out of illusion and fake. I'm just not interested in it.
I love it. Yeah, I love that.
An intention and going to God with that. He's like, "Are you sure?" And they're both like, "Are you sure, Sherry? Because here you go. Like, this is what you asked for." And I think kind of how we started this discussion was around, not having to earning perfection, not have to earn perfection or getting out of that paradigm for me has taken all this time, 7 years, starting at the age of, let's see, I'm 51. So 7 years ago would have put me at 46. No. What's 51 minus 7? 44.
Yeah.
7. And I can literally say it's when I started, that's the year that, Eli came, and then Em came 2 years later, my 2 adopted kids, both miraculous private adoptions. So we're fraught with hellish types of experiences. And just, anyway, as I look back, I'm like, hey, the universe totally set this whole divine tutoring thing up for me. And I'm coming out of this, but the whole deprogramming, if I could just whittle it down of what I am deprogramming and unpacking and releasing, it's earning my worthiness. Working so hard for God to prove that I'm something.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
am not willing to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I want to operate from the paradigm that I'm already whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could say that I'm already there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I have released so much of it. And I feel like I'm on the culminating, space around it where I can go into plant journey or series of them, which I will be doing for that week in Costa Rica. Having done, 6 years of work around, almost 7 years of work around this, and also with a desire to lift the planet, like you bring whatever I'm here to teach, and whatever that looks like in breaking family patterns and waking women up to their power. Like, let's do it. And I want to embody that first and have that knowing for myself first. And I'm almost there. At the same time, coming into it humbly going, I have a lot of work to do still. Like, I might think I'm on the tail end of everything, but life is a series of journeys into the soul, into the underworld, if you will, to exercise and like spiritual surgery, right? Just to get all of the illusion out, all of the falsehoods, everything that's not serving us, so that we can really be pure vessels and strong and wise, and still street smart. It's not about naivety, and it's not about living in a bubble.
Right.
We've done that, right?
Yes.
We've lived in the bubble.
Yeah. It's kind of comfortable. The bubble's really comfortable, but then when it pops, you're like, ooh, that's uncomfy.
It is. Well, this has been super enlightening, really fascinating. I think a lot of people are going to love this and also like not know what to do with it. And that's okay, because I look back on the things I was introduced to about 10 years ago that I'm teaching that people were thought I should have been a witch burned at the stake for. And now millions of people are doing those things like essential oils and, other forms of like, mind, body healing and energy work and all that. I mean, I was teaching this stuff, 12 years ago, 10 years ago in workshops that people are like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
oh,
what?
Yeah. Well, and it takes the brave souls to come forward to risk judgment. And it was this second time to Peru that I went, you know what? I'm okay with that. If I have people around me that judge and think I've lost my mind because I'm on this journey, I'm fine with that, because it's those people that have reached out. I've had quite a few people reach out that say, tell me about this. And people that I didn't think would, that are like, I want to go next time you go. I need this.
Yeah.
And some real authentic conversations. And the world needs this. And so I'm willing, and you're willing too. I think you're going to have an amazing experience in Costa Rica because you're so open and humble, and you are where you're at. I think you're going to have unbelievable, beautiful experiences.
Well, I want me some downloads.
Oh, you're going to get some.
And then we can wrap it up with this. But yesterday I was listening to the soundtrack of Frozen 2, which if any of you have seen it, it's got so many references to Divine Mother. And I wept the first time I saw it in the theater with my kids and my husband. And but there is a song called, I think it's called Show Yourself. And it's, Elsa's character sings it. So Idina Menzel, and I love her voice, but it's so powerful. I'm just going to encourage everybody to listen to it, because it's almost like she's asking Divine Mother to show herself that she's ready. So I was like bawling in the car yesterday, coming back from some of my errands. And I was like, yes, that's my intention. That's it.
I love it.
I'm ready. And so
I love that.
See how that manifests. And I don't have any pretenses that I'm any more special than anyone else, but I feel so blessed that I have the means to go over and do this and bring it back in some way, shape, or form, at least what I learn to, in my own experience, to other people who are hurting and lost and need sustenance and strength and nourishment, and at the soul level. So who knows, maybe you and I will be co-conspirators and partners in crime, to speak with that.
I would love it. I would love that.
You are inspiring. You're a joy. Thank you. I'm going to direct people to where they can find your book in the show notes, but can you just tell people the name of it is called Joy is My Answer, and they can find it on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, Joy is my answer. What I learned from The Refiner's Fire, Laura Stoker, on Amazon.com.
Oh,
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Laura. This was beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me. I think you're an amazing woman. I'm so excited about what you're going to experience in Costa Rica.
Oh, thank you. You've made me even more excited for it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so listener friends, you'll have to stay tuned sometime in April as I reveal my experience from that week-long excursion I'm about to embark on the week after Easter in Costa Rica at this soul hospital or what have you that I'm doing to receive of the sacred plants and continue on my journey and quest to really come to that space of wholeness through releasing trauma, generational patterning, everything else that has built within and around me that is impeding me from moving on to the next level. And so I will be sharing that. I have gotten pretty clear through meditation and prayer that I need to be really transparent about what evolves from that. So yeah, stay tuned and please share this with your girlfriends and your guy friends. I do have the very deep knowing that there are many people who could be benefited by a lot of these conversations and a lot of these tools that are available to us now that we never had access to before. So have an absolutely beautiful week, and I will talk to you next Wednesday on Women Seeking Wholeness.